Okay, and we're now live. Just going to give folks a few minutes to join in to the call before we get officially started. Welcome. Assalamu alaikum. Friends, as you're joining in, feel free to let us know in the chat where are you joining from. Give us salams. We'll send you salams back. And we're going to give everybody a few minutes to join in so you have time to grab your cup of coffee or your lunch as well. So let me see. Oh, nice. Assalamu alaikum, Ali. From Vaughan. I hope the weather is great up there. Downtown is very murky. I hope you're getting sunshine. All right. We're going to get slowly started with just a little bit of introductions. It gives plenty of time to folks to join in. So assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome back to our continuation of webinars sponsored by Mac's mentorship team and group. We're back with our fall series. And our topic today is Paycheck to Prosperity, Halal Investing Demystified. And there are a few things that you can expect from today's chat. We're going to talk a little bit about that year-end financial check-in and optimizing your financial growth for next year. We're going to touch on growing your financial literacy, as well as starting your halal investment journey and looking at all of the options that are available to you now for halal investing. You are absolutely welcome to put in any comments in the chat. And we will be doing a bit of a Q&A later on anyway, but you're absolutely more than welcome to use chat to converse with our presenter and other guests as well. So we are welcoming Areeb Khawaja, and who I've met actually just earlier this year through Mac's mentorship program. And I was honestly so impressed by just his knowledge and his willingness to share what he's learned, and also his willingness to step outside of his comfort zone and learn something completely different from his day job, and excel at it, and also be very willing to, teach others and share what he's learned around halal investing in financial management. So I'm just gonna give you a few minutes to introduce yourself. Give us a little bit of your background. What do our folks need to know about you?
Well, firstly, assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you, Ida, for inviting me to this platform. It's been an absolute honor. I am someone who comes from a technology background, from an engineering background. I studied electrical engineering. I graduated in the midst of COVID, and at the time there were no jobs. So I found myself going back to school and getting my master's in engineering as well. And I remember once I graduated from that program, I was fortunate to be a part of TELUS. And a year into my TELUS journey, into my post-education journey, I remember having a conversation with my manager, and he had said, "Hey, Areeb, you should consider putting your performance bonus into your RRSP." And I remember looking at him and thinking, RRSP, retirement? Why are we thinking about retirement? I'm like a year out of school here. Retirement's so far away. What does this have to do with anything? And at that time, I didn't know that you can use these tax-saving vehicles and investment vehicles to really build up your financial stability. So I had no knowledge of personal finance at that time, but then I started learning, first more so for myself, and then as time went on, I realized that there was such a big gap in the community when it comes to personal financial management. Just my example on its own, 25 years of education, and nobody sat me down and said, "Areeb, here's how you manage your personal finances. Here's how you do budgeting. Here's what investment looks like." And so when I went through this whole journey, I realized that our community really needs that awareness around personal financial management. And for that reason, I decided to get a license with the Financial Services Regulatory Authority. And I wanted to start educating people more on how they can manage their finances and help them achieve their goals.
Nice. And we're very fortunate to have you here to give us the 101 and then some. So for those of you that have not joined us previously, my name is Areeb Khawaja. I host these webinar series on behalf of Max Mentorship and Max programs. We will be providing some additional information with regards to the programs themselves in the appendix, as well as staying tuned for next year's mentorship program, which will be kicking off in springtime. So very nice to meet you all. I also have very non-linear journey when it comes to financial management, not basically non-existent knowledge, same like Areeb, through my teenage years, and then coming into Canada, really having nothing to manage to begin with. So we've had to learn ourselves how to how to navigate, what options are available, and so on and so forth. So then now we're applying that to our kids. So that is kind of where we're at. And we'll share some of our wisdom and some advice, and hopefully take some Q&A a bit later on. Walaikum assalam, Aisha. Very nice to have you here again. I would like to do a bit of a land acknowledgement. So Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. As Muslims, we are thought to be stewards of the earth and to seek justice. In this spirit, we humbly acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. We honor the enduring presence of the indigenous peoples who have cared for this land since time immemorial. We commit to learning the history of this land, recognizing the ongoing impacts of colonization, and working and contributing towards authentic solidarity and reconciliation, in alignment with our faith's call for truth and equity for all people. And as I like to do in each webinar, there are some resources here for you to learn more about, and I think also resources to contribute to charities as well in this space. So I would highly recommend that you take advantage of these and continue your learning journey. Now, to get us started, we always like to ask you the question to make sure that we are answering and we're focusing our conversation on exactly the things that you care about. So when it comes to financial investing, if you don't mind taking advantage of the chat capability, what challenges are you facing the most? What are some of the things that you'd like us to consider and maybe share from our perspectives, experiences? So feel free to put a comment in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer it throughout, or we'll also try to answer some of the questions at the end. So I'll just pause there for a second. While you're doing that, I think one of the biggest challenges that I had is knowing that there was such a thing as financial investing. To your point, I was kind of facing the same thing about, I knew that I would get a paycheck, but I didn't know what this other stuff was, and what did it actually mean, and how to actually make it work for myself and my family. And as our financial situation got complicated through marriage, through obviously purchasing a home and investments and so on and so forth, really how to navigate that space more effectively. So I don't feel like I'm ever done learning here. Definitely not an expert. But that's, I think, one of the areas. And then now, I would say in more recent years, really figuring out halal investing options that we have, and how do we fine tune based on our values, the ethical standards that we have, and things that really align to our belief system. Okay, Ali has a question on where can you see your wealth management team investing money in terms of halal. Okay, we'll touch on this a little bit because there are different organizations definitely look at things a little bit differently. And we're going to leave this open. You are welcome to contribute your questions and thoughts throughout as well. But we definitely want to, we'll go back into the chat and check in every once in a while and see what's there. Asma, I see your question, comment, so we'll definitely touch on this. We definitely have some resources for you as well. It was a struggle for us as well. Okay, so if we kind of take a look at the next slide in looking ahead. So if you joined previous webinars with us, I had a couple of slides that I shared around AIDA's lofty goals for the year. And this was kind of one of those views, which kind of outlined things that I wanted to accomplish. And some of the things that we talked about is the methodical checking in on my performance, as well as career planning, and reflecting on my financial compensation in the workplace that I'm in. So being year end, it's now an opportune time to have these discussions with your employers. If you have not already yet, making sure that you are well positioned for increases and that are aligned to your performance objectives and performance of the 2025 year, and thinking into what you want to do in 2026. So we did a webinar also on performance reviews themselves, which kind of helped, how do you actually document all of your accomplishments, which are honestly also needed if you're going to sit down and talk about financial compensation and increases that you feel will be justified based on your performance. So I would highly recommend, this is a time to ask, this is time to have those conversations. A lot of people shy away from even mentioning anything. And it just kind of accept whatever is there. But honestly, if you do not ask, you will never receive. And it's best to be participant. You are, after all, in business relationship with your employer. You are offering your services and your time, and in return, you're getting compensation. So this is an important time for you to kind of step in and advocate for yourself, and keep that in mind. The other thing that it's important to note is to really review all of your benefits. Oftentimes what I see is people are not taking advantage of the RSP contributions, RSP match, or any other financial match that the organization might offer. And there could be shares involved, whatever that may be. Really, really look at all the fine print, and do not leave the money on the table that you are entitled to. I think that's probably one of the most common things that I see. People are just not, they kind of take the paycheck and that's it. And they're a little bit surprised about what to do with the bonus when it comes in. But I would highly recommend sitting down with, the right people in your organization, getting yourself educated and making sure that you're optimizing those options. Areeb, any other comments that you wanted to share here?
I completely agree with you, Ida. I think many employees see their compensation as just their base pay, and it's important to take a holistic perspective into your total compensation and try to maximize that as much as possible, because these are things that you are entitled to, and it can actually enable you to be in a more financially secure position, even when your employer isn't necessarily giving you a higher base pay. These can include things, as you mentioned, like your bonus structures, your performance-based bonus, if you have any restricted stock units or equity within your company, that can also be negotiated upon as well. You touched upon retirement contributions, so things like a RRSP match program or a pension match program. We should all be taking advantage of these things because this is part of your compensation. The company is giving you more money as a result of that, and as a result of your work with them. And if you're not maximizing these, then you're leaving money on the table, so to say. Right? There are things like professional development budgets, right? Your company or your team may have allocated a certain amount of dollars for your learning and training. And if you don't ask your manager how much that allocation is, how much that budget is, you might go ahead and start buying courses yourself and spending your own personal money when you're becoming better as a professional. And that should be something that your employer is benefiting from. So they should be, supporting that. And you need to have honest conversations with them to understand what their professional development budget is. There are things like wellness budgets that you can use throughout the rest of the year, your health savings plan, health spending account, wellness spending account, to pay for things like vacations and fitness. I know a lot of people have gym memberships. These are very expensable towards your wellness spending account that most companies offer. So look into that. Look into paid leave options. And this enables you to be more financially secure from a holistic perspective rather than just from a base pay perspective.
Mm-hmm. The other thing, again, on the benefits, you definitely need to check in and take a look at anything that you're paying out of pocket. Obviously, have a conversation with your tax accountant, tax advisor, just to see whether any of that can be submitted as you're doing your taxes. Because if you're paying for anything that's health related, there could be an opportunity there to get a bit of a tax break. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And then on the next slide, just a little bit of, again, this is Ada's brain map, right? I try to take a look at everything through the lens of what is the ultimate goal, right? For us Muslims, again, it's always important to remind yourself that the goal isn't, this is temporary, and this is all a test, right? So then if that's true, then what is the ultimate outcome that I'm trying to drive through for? And to me, it's walking through one of these doors, right? So this is, a bit of a representation of all the doors to get into Jannah, right? So if I'm even focused on the financials, it's how can that actually help me and align me to the ultimate goal, right? And making sure it's not about greed, it's not about more and actually being rich. It's about being financially stable so that I can give back. And then one thing that I've always found works like an absolute charm is, the more you give, the more it comes in. So, this is definitely at the end of the year time. We have United Way campaigns, you have Tuesday giving campaigns that, double up your matches and so on and so forth. So I would highly recommend that, people are looking at I have anxiety when my donations do not go out on the same day with my paycheck. Like, it has to be set up. I want to make sure that that's set up. I do not want to think twice about this is something that I need to contribute, and then doing it offsite. So while we do ad hoc as well, the key ones that I want to make sure are always taken care of every single time, every bi-weekly, that's my investment for the afterlife. So it's not just investments with high return in this life. I definitely keep your eye on the ball, right? And that's really, I didn't want to spend too much time on there. Just want to kind of put that out there, that the mindset is, you definitely want to kind of check yourself in and figure out. I feel like the greater the financial wealth, I feel like the greater the responsibility to be mindful about what you do with it. So just putting that out there. Okay, then why don't we get into a little bit of the Halal Investing Demystified? I see some questions in here that we'll touch base on as well at some point.
I just want to add a quick note on this, Ida. There's something to be said that on the Day of Judgment, there are 5 questions that are going to be asked every Muslim, right? And 2 of them have to do with how you earned your money and how you spent your money, right? And so one of the things that I keep bringing back to folks that I talk to is your personal finances can become an enabler for all of the other aspects of your life. Like, you're better able to take care of your family, you're better able to take care of your spouse, you're better able to give back to the community, give back to and do khidmah of the deen, right? A service for the community as well, if you're in a position where you're financially stable and secure as well. So we should always aim to be in a financially secure position. This is something that, that even our religion encourages us to be. We should be in positions where we're secure so that we can support in giving. Absolutely. And we can only do that when we're secure and able to do so. So absolutely. All right. So I'll start talking a little bit about halal investing and the importance of investing. But before I get just into that, I want to mention really quickly, I am here on my personal behalf, not on behalf of TELUS, not representing TELUS today. And anything I share here today is not financial advice. To seek financial advice for your particular situation, you should go and talk to a financial advisor. And I think legal says I have to say that in order to make sure I'm covered. So just putting that out there. All right, so why should people care about personal finances? Well, there's something that I like to talk about with all of the people that I work with, and it's called the X curve of building wealth and responsibility. You see, earlier on in your life, when your early career, you might have just gotten your first job right out of school, or it may have been a couple of years, you have more responsibility. You might have to take care of kids. You're just, you're maybe in a position where you're looking to get married, you're settling down, you have a mortgage and debt. You might have to be, taking care of elderly parents. You might have kids and you have to take care of those kids and their education as well. So you have a higher degree of responsibility, but in that early stage of your life or in your early career, you have less wealth, you have less assets in order to do that. Over time, as you age, your responsibilities will go down. Your children may have grown up, so you don't have to worry about them so much. Your parents are taken care of. You may have bought your house, so you don't have to worry about your mortgage and debt so much. And your wealth will have risen. You will have accumulated more assets that can help take care of you for your future. But as we age, what's important for us is to balance both wealth building and responsibility in our life's journey. And this is where I like to talk about something called the formula for wealth creation. And the formula for wealth creation is basically just money plus time multiplied by the rate of return minus inflation, because that's taking away value, minus taxes. And what's left over is wealth. So a question I like to usually pose at this point is, out of these aspects, what is it that you think we can actually control? Out of the things that we have in our engine of wealth creation, if you could write in the chat, what do you folks think we can actually control? Is it the rate of return? Is it inflation? Is it taxes? Is it the amount of money that we put in? Just take a guess.
I wish I could control taxes. Inflation too, I wouldn't mind that one too.
Well, I would say it's none of these things. You can't control money. You can't really control your income, right? You work for an employer, they're setting your income. You can't really change that unless you change employers and then you negotiate another income. You can't control the rate of return because that depends on the market. You can't control inflation. Those are macroeconomic factors. And you can't control taxes unless you're in government and you're setting the taxation policy. The only thing you really can control is the amount of time that you let your portfolio build wealth for. And that's why there's a saying that, the best time to start investing was 30 years ago, but the second best time is now. The only thing you truly can control is the amount of time that you build your portfolio for. You leave your money within the market for. And this is where I usually tell people, like, it's not so much about timing the market as it is about time in the market. What do I mean by that? Well, I'll give you a quick example here. To see the power of time in action, let's consider two individuals with the same goal. They both save the same amount of money each year in an identical investment account. And the only difference is when they start. So let's say we have two people, Mr. Start Early, and he began saving at the age of 25, and every single year he's contributing $3,600 every single year, $3,600. He puts that into his savings account every single year. And he's contributing to that for 7 years only. So for 7 years from the age of 25, every year he's putting $3,600. And then we have Mr. Wait Longer. And Mr. Wait Longer delays for the first 7 years. He's looking at Mr. Start Early and thinking, poof, why do I need to start early? I should be enjoying my life. I should be making use of this money. I'll think about savings and investments and budgeting and planning later. I don't need to think about this right now. And then he starts saving at the age of 32. Who do you think will have more money at the age of 48? Take a guess. You guys can put this in the comments.
My answer doesn't count. I get to see the full slides.
Let's assume they're earning a hypothetical 8% annual return. So their investment is increasing every year by 8%. Well, we have two paths and two timelines here. On the left, you see Mr. Start Early, and he only invested $3,600 for 7 years, right? Every year he was putting it in, and then he stopped. He doesn't make another contribution again for the rest of his life. And he's only saving for those 7 years. Mr. Wait Longer, at the age of 32, he starts putting in his first contribution. He's putting in, $3,600 every single year, and he continues up until the age of 48. So you might say, hey, Areeb, well, Mr. Wait Longer contributed for a longer period of time, so he's made more contributions into his account. So his value at the age of 48 is $131,000, right? And Mr. Start Early, his value was $128,000. So what are you getting at here? Mr. Wait Longer was able to achieve the same, even slightly better return than Mr. Start Early. Well, the point of this scenario is the cost of waiting was $36,000. Mr. Wait Longer saved for an additional 10 years. He was putting in way more contributions. He invested more than double the amount of his own money into his portfolio. And for all that extra effort, he got relatively the same return, right? Mr. Wait Longer put in $61,000 over that 17-year period, whereas Mr. Start Early is only putting in $25,000 over a 7-year period. Mr. Wait Longer invested more than twice that amount. And if you look at the value, at the final value at age 48, they're nearly identical. So waiting 7 years longer forced Mr. Wait Longer to contribute an extra $36,000 of his own money just to end up in roughly the same place from a portfolio perspective. So that's the value of time. That's the value of starting early and making the most of your time. So now you've heard me talk a little bit about investing. You've heard me talk a little bit about starting early and why that's so important. Now you're going to be thinking, okay, Areeb, I get it. I understand it's important for me to start early. It's important for me to invest. But how do I do it in a halal way? How do I do it in a way that aligns with my faith and with my values? Well, that's where halal finance comes in. And halal finance is a system that's built on ethical principles. It's guided by faith, so it follows the ethical teachings from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. It emphasizes justice, so the principles of fairness, transparency, and shared risk between parties, rather than simple profit maximization. And it views money as a tool. Money is seen as a medium of exchange to facilitate transactions, not a commodity to be grown through interest. So halal finance offers an ethical and equitable approach to financial dealings. As Muslims, we are obligated to pursue our investment journey and our financial planning journey in a way that ascribes to our faith and our values, and that's what halal finance enables us to do. So what does that mean? Well, from a halal finance perspective, our moral compass is grounded on 5 key areas. Firstly, our investments have to be asset-backed. They're backed by tangible assets and real economic activity, not speculative instruments. There needs to be some real tangible asset that you're investing into. It involves risk sharing, so both the investor and the entrepreneur share in the potential profits and losses of a venture. We only focus on ethical sectors where companies are providing goods and services that are beneficial to society, that are helping humanity. There needs to be an element of transparency, so we require full disclosure in all contracts, exploitative clauses. And there's an element of social responsibility that we often overlook. Our investments should align with the Islamic values of fairness, stewardship, and community welfare. This is particularly important in today's day and age, where there are atrocities happening and oppression happening all over the world, whether that's Gaza or other areas of the world, where people are being exploited, and there are platforms and organizations that are supporting these initiatives, and we should be standing against that and not enabling that. So that social responsibility aspect is extremely important as well. Within halal finance, there are certain key prohibitions. Within the Islamic paradigm, within the halal, when you think about what makes something halal, what is important to understand is that everything is halal except for the things that are not. It's never, oh, we have to justify that something is halal. It's more so everything by default is considered halal except for the things that have been explicitly prohibited. So within the world of finance, what are the things that are explicitly prohibited? I'm just sharing at a very high level here, folks. But there are entire degrees that people do in this space, and It's a very technical space, but just at a high level, what's important for everyone to understand is riba, or interest. Earning or paying interest on loans is forbidden, right? So if I were to go to someone, and if I were to go to Ida, for example, and say, hey, Ida, I have this really cool venture. I want to start this AI company, and I want to, make a lot of money by helping people do something with my venture. And Ida says, that's great, Areeb. I'll give you a loan. Here's $100,000. And every year you're going to return to me, 10% on top of this money until you pay it all back. That is considered riba. I just from the sake of the loan itself, we can't make more money off of that, right? You can't make money on top of capital. It has to be tied to some sort of tangible asset. Then we have a concept called gharar, or excessive uncertainty. These are contracts that are speculative, ambiguous, or overly uncertain, and these are avoided within Islam. What does that mean? If I were to say, Ida, I have a box, and you can't see what's inside the box. I won't tell you what's inside the box. You can have it for $1,000, right? But Ida doesn't know what's inside the box. It's completely speculative. It could be something very, very valuable, more valuable than $1,000, or it could be something completely cheap and inexpensive. That sort of transaction where it's completely unknown what's inside the box is not considered halal. We have maisar, or gambling, which is investing in activities based on chance or pure speculation. So gambling or playing the lottery, and then other financial activities as well. And then investing in haram industries that are harmful or unethical, such as alcohol, pork, weapons manufacturing, adult entertainment, things like that. These should be avoided as well. So I think someone asked how they can find out if an investment is halal or where they're investing their money. I can touch upon that a little bit on this slide. The vetting process that determines how investments become certified halal is 2 stages typically. At a high level, we look at the sector screening. So we look at excluding companies that are deriving significant income from prohibited industries. As I mentioned, conventional banking, alcohol, pork, gambling, adult entertainment, weapons, tobacco, anything that is harming society, harming humanity. We have to screen for that and avoid investing in those things. That's the first baseline level of screening. And then we look at financial ratio screening. So from the companies that are left, do they meet our financial requirements? For example, and lots of different certifiers and certification standard, giving authorities have different benchmarks that they have set. I'll share AOFI's standards. AOFI is one of the larger certifying standard setting bodies. And they, for example, they set a standard where the debt of the company has to be less than 33% of total assets. The cash plus interest-bearing securities must be less than 1/3 of the total assets. And there are other factors here as well, like accounts receivable have to be less than 50%, and their non-permissible income from activities that aren't considered halal have to be less than 5% of the portfolio. And if there is non-permissible income, there's something that called a purification factor, which is charity that's given to help purify the income coming in from these investments. So this is at a very high level, the standard that is set to ensure that investments are certified halal. Who are the folks that are setting these standards? Well, there are lots of different committees or communities of scholars that come together, and they represent different bodies. So, for example, AOFI is the Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Financial Institutions. It's based out of Bahrain, and they're one of the larger ones. It's a key body that sets these Sharia-compliant standards. There's AIFA, so the Islamic Fiqh Academy. They also issue influential rulings on finance. There are major index providers, so entities like Dow Jones, the Islamic Market Index, MSCI Islamic Index. They also apply Sharia screens. And then there are Sharia advisory boards, so panels of expert Islamic scholars who review and certify individual financial products as well. Within Ontario specifically, we have the Islamic Finance Advisory Board, IFAB. And they specifically certify Islamic finance products in Canada and conduct Sharia compliance audits. One thing I want to mention at this stage is that just because something does not have a Sharia compliance certificate does not mean that it's not halal, right? It's the same thing as if you go to a restaurant and the restaurant has a halal certificate, right? So you know that, okay, they're following the standards set by a standard setting body, and there has been an audit or an inspection done that makes sure that this is halal. But if you come home and you cook the same food at home, you know that your food is halal, right? So all a Sharia compliance does is it ensures that there was an audit conducted by a board of scholars. They went and they reviewed the financial investments, and they are giving their thumbs up or their approval, their seal of approval to say this financial investment meets our criteria to be considered Sharia compliant. So that's what a Sharia compliance certificate is really representing. But aside from that, you can still pursue halal investments that meet our criteria without having to get a board of scholars reviewing and auditing them. And really, the reason why there aren't as many Sharia compliant products, financial products within Canada is because we as Muslims haven't advocated for this need within our industry, within our society. If we were to go to the bank and go talk to financial institutions and say, hey, I want to invest, but I want to invest in products that are Sharia compliant by XYZ organization, and there was enough demand for these things, the financial institutions would recognize that there's a market here, let's cater to this community, and they would go out and they would try to get that audit conducted or that certification from these standard setting bodies. So it's really upon us to take the responsibility and make a case for why there's a need within Canada for financial institutions to provide these Sharia compliance products. All right, I'll move on. So here's a quick look at the halal investment landscape in Ontario. There are halal ETFs and mutual funds that you can invest into. For example, there's the Wealth Simple Sharia ETF portfolio. I am not endorsing any of these. I'm just sharing that there are lots of different professionally managed portfolios of Sharia compliant stocks. You can also see the SP funds, S&P 500 Sharia Industry Exclusion ETF. I believe also Munzil is launching their own halal ETF within the US as well. We have halal financial advisors. Whenever you're talking to a financial advisor, or you should make sure that they're a licensed professional, they're licensed with the Financial Services Regulatory Authority, and they have some sort of education in Sharia compliant financial planning or Islamic financial planning. We have different options for Islamic home and auto financing. Once again, I'm not endorsing any of these, just sharing this for everyone's knowledge. But if you're looking for asset-based financing for homes and things like that, you can look at Munzil. There's also Ijara Canada and the Canadian Islamic Wealth Association as well. And the final thing that I want to mention is, as it relates to these government-registered investment vehicles and accounts like your RRSP and your TFSA, the RRSP and TFSA itself is just an account, right? You put money into it. If you don't invest it into something, it will just sit there. On its own, a RRSP or a TFSA is not halal or haram. It's just an account. It's like having a bucket. What you choose to put inside that bucket is what's considered halal or haram. So you can invest into different things, and what you choose to invest in through your RRSP account or your TFSA account, that is what will determine if the investment is halal for you or not. Not so much the RRSP and TFSA facilities. These are really just facilities that the government is providing to you to enable you to better plan for your financial future, plan for retirement, plan for your financial stability, and to help you achieve certain goals. These are tax advantaged growth vehicles. They on their own are not halal or not. So just a little bit on that piece there. And we have a quiz that people can take. If we want to put the link to this in the chat, this will just test your financial literacy.
Yep. We will be sharing the entire deck, so there will be links. So if you can just go to the next couple of slides very quickly, there are links that we had mentioned before that we think are helpful. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. There's a lot out there, especially recently, and I expect that there will be a lot more that becomes available in the next short term. But you will get this deck, whoever's registered, and you can kind of peruse through it and go through these links too. If you have not seen them before, you start your journey, kind of get a good understanding. What I like is that there are obviously organizations that will do, I would say, the bulk of the work, right? They'll do the filtering for you, but then after that, you need to do the extra layer of filtering, right? And understanding exactly the companies themselves and based on your standards, if there's any additional filtering or focus that you'd like to pay attention to when it comes to your investing. So I just want to pause on here and just go to a couple of questions. Ali had asked on where can you see your wealth management team investing your money in terms of halal. So again, what I would recommend, again, let's assume that if you're investing through our space through your work or even in your own, you can always see where the money is invested on the statements that you're getting. You will probably get the fund name that's included. What I would do is I would actually Google that and take a look at all of the stocks that are included as part of that. And then I would actually, what I do, I download it to Excel and then I compare it to the Sharia compliant list and see how far off is that fund. Sometimes you don't have a choice, like if you're in an organization, they'll just kind of give you preset funds to choose from. But then you can also have a conversation and say, well, at which point can I actually transfer things out so I can manage it in a like account elsewhere? I think that's one thing that I didn't ask early enough. I was just kind of assuming that I can't touch it until I've either left the company and it's just, but that's not the case. Each of these are structured very differently, and sitting down with your financial advisor to say, what could I do here to optimize this? And if I want to start, transferring money into halal investments, how would that look like? So that's just something to keep in mind. I think it doesn't matter where you're investing from. I would always look at the list that is really full list of funds that are associated with, stocks that are associated with a particular fund, and get yourself educated. And then I see a question. Asma, I think we answered your question on the standardization, right? So you have the set there, the guidance, but then again, you apply the next layer. Here we have a link to ethical consumer. If you go through that, we are going to list out all the different companies that are not necessarily looked at through the other avenues. And then you may opt in or opt out, right? Choosing those companies in your portfolio. So there is definitely here a layer of subjectivity. You can trust the systems that have been defined, or you can really work with somebody who's very knowledgeable in the space and obviously certified to work in the space to help you narrow down your options. And I see, will the deck slide? Yes, absolutely. We're going to be sending it after the conversation is done. And then let me see, I think we have, so my company offers RPP. How can I use that money to invest on my own? So do you want to take that one, Areeb?
Sure, absolutely. And just to touch a little bit on Ali's question on seeing where your wealth is being invested into through the wealth management team. One of the things that you should do is sit down with your financial advisor and explain to them that you want to invest in either Sharia compliant or halal aligned investments. And what they will do is they should provide you with a fund facts document. So that's all of the information. These are documents that are compiled that include information on which sectors the investments are going into, which companies specifically the allocation is made into. And then, as Ida mentioned, you can research those companies and you can look at how aligned they are from a Sharia compliance perspective or from a halal perspective as well, and do your own due diligence as well. But you can really get a sense of it if you look at that fund facts document and see, okay, what's the sector split? What's the company allocation for this investment? And the other thing that I want to mention to you, Ali, is a lot of times when I talk to people, their go-to thought is, I want to maximize ROI. I want to maximize my returns. Give me things that are going to really help me grow my portfolio. One of the things that we have to look at is, what are your goals? What will you need the money for, right? Are you trying to buy a house in the short term? Are you trying to retire in the long term? Are you trying to get married and you're saving for that purpose? Are you trying to buy a car? And based off of that, you have to make a financial plan or a financial strategy. And based off of what your financial strategy is, let's say you need money on, in the short term because you need to buy a car or you're looking to get married very soon. You don't want to invest in a more aggressive portfolio because there's going to be more risk, there's going to be more volatility, and maybe on a short-term basis, whenever you go to withdraw that money, you might actually be losing money at that point. So you have to look at it from the other perspective, like what is the goal that you're trying to achieve with the wealth itself, and then plan your financial strategy that way. That's one thing that your wealth management team can also help you with in terms of investing your money. And then do ask them for that fun facts document that will give you that insight into how halal aligned or Sharia compliant that investment is. Now, coming to Shahriar's question, your company offers registered pension plan. How can I use that money to invest on my own, or use the money for future learning, or use the money for buying a house? Is this locked in until I retire? So you should look into the specific policy set by your company. I don't want to give you blanket advice, but I'll speak on a general basis. A lot of companies have pension match programs. They have defined contribution benefit programs. And what that basically means is you invest a little bit into your pension, the company will match that to a certain extent. And that money will get invested into a portfolio and it will potentially grow. If you invest through that, then you have a little bit less control because you're more reliant on the options that the wealth management team there is providing. For example, and because it's on a group basis, it's more so set that policy is set by the company that is providing these services, whether that's Desjardins or Canada Life or some of the other companies that offer these pension plans. However, typically when you leave a company, you can choose to move that funding, that pension plan, to a locked-in retirement account, or just keep it there. Just keep in mind whenever you make that decision, if you leave that money there, you have to remember how to access it in the future. I believe there, in Canada alone, over $2 billion is just sitting unclaimed. And the reason for that is because people leave the money in their retirement pension plans and completely forget about it 40 years later when they're actually retiring. They might realize, they might not even realize they had a pension match from a company they worked for 40 years ago. So it's important to keep track of that, perhaps move it into a locked-in retirement account. When you're moving companies, they also typically give you the option to either transfer that money into an RRSP or through another pension plan that you might be working with. So just work with your company to understand what their policies are when it comes to moving that money. You could potentially use it towards investing on your own. You can pull that money out, or towards buying a business, but it really depends on the policy that the company has set.
Yeah, I would agree on the really know where your money's at. We've been working in Canada for 30 years now, and for multiple companies, and every single company had their own plans. So at some point there was just too much paperwork to keep track of, and I didn't know where anything was. So just 1 year, it took actually 1.5 years of effort to just consolidate everything in one place. And again, we was trying to think about, how do I set this up for my kids? If something were to happen to me, it is extremely complicated to deal with all the paperwork. For me, it took 1.5 years, let alone for somebody who's supposed to be inheriting. So do get your finances organized in a way that it's easy to manage, easy to understand where everything is. Highly recommend that. The other couple of tips that I just want to share, again, really depending on where you are in your life, to Areeb's diagram, right? But I would still recommend, even if you're in the early stages of your career, to be looking to invest. I do think not enough people are exploring TFSA, especially if you have your post-teen young adult kids, right? That's an excellent option for them. I think our kids have had social insurance numbers like within a month of their birth, and we've had RESPs started way back then. Like whatever we could put aside, we put aside. And now I'm so thankful to myself for doing that because their university is so expensive. So every little bit helps, eat gifts, go to investments, birthday presents, investments, if uncles, aunts, cousins, whoever wants to contribute, easily go to investments as opposed to, cash. Like kids are fine with $20. I mean, they'll be perfectly fine buying an ice cream. Yet, sometimes kids, alhamdulillah, with enough family members around, they're gifted quite a lot. So, making sure that those options are there in place for them, and then teaching your kids investing. So I think our kids had first accounts. Obviously they had their bank accounts when they were really, really little, but they had their investment accounts probably, I'd say maybe around 12. And they were trying to understand what's going on. And now when one of them is adult, I transferred that to her. So now she understands her account and her investments, and she's also adding in little bits and pieces whenever she gets extra money. But it matters to not make this taboo topic as it's been in the past, and really help yourself learn. Like Areeb has learned to support himself and his own family's financial journey. We need to do the same thing. Understand all the ecosystem here to take advantage of what are the options that we have in building this wealth in the most halal way possible, and then obviously helping our kids learn how to manage money in the same way as well.
I want to share a quick story on that, Ida, because you just reminded me of something. I remember growing up, we would get this ED money and from all of our relatives, and my mom would be like, "Oh, Areeb, you're going to lose this money. Why don't you just save it with me? I'll put it in the bank account, and then you can have it whenever you want it." Nope. We'll never see that money again. So one of the things that, I think everyone should be conscious of is at such a young age is also thinking about, oh, I've got this money, how can I invest it? Learning about investing, learning about saving, learning about the value of the money itself. I think at a certain young age is so important.
Yeah, and I noticed that honestly a lot with parents my age, parental groups. It's a thing. A lot of them are doing that with their teenage kids, and I'm so happy to see that financial literacy improving, and also the options being there. So again, if you're not asking for the options, they may not be there. I know TD has an option for direct investing where you can filter halal. I think it says basically a screener. Stock screener. I think if you go to the next page, there's also a link to different screening options that are also available independently. And then obviously you mentioned Simple, Manulife has an option as well. So there's definitely growth in options. So we highly recommend look into this. It's prime time to be exploring, to be mindful about what you want to do, and getting to know honestly Muslims in this community that are doing this really, really well. And interviewing them, so same way as you would interview anybody else to help you. This is extremely important that you're comfortable with your financial advisor, that the mindset is there. So meet a few, understand how they operate, understand their success, obviously their certifications and so on and so forth, so that you feel comfortable making decisions, and you're working with them over many years in your financial investing journey. So there's a lot to do. We're giving you a very long to-do list. I hope this was helpful. If there's any questions, please feel free to drop them into the comments. We're more than happy to answer.
I want to add a small note here. I know Ali was asking about how he can track if something is halal, if the investment is halal, and one of the platforms on the list that you see here is Musafa, which is a Sharia compliant investment research platform. You can create a free account through them, and then you can search up companies, and they will do the screening for you. They will tell you the Sharia compliance, sector-specific allocation, their income allocation, how much of that money is coming in from different income earning sources. Are they compliant? And things like that. So it's a great research platform. Everyone should check it out, and hopefully it will help make us more aware about how the money is being spent.
Excellent. All right. I think we covered all the questions that have come up. And really appreciated Ilyas's comments there on the what can you control. Ilyas likes to control things. He's getting things done. I love that. Well done. And I have to say, Areeba, how fantastic it is to have a speaker and a guest with almost identical names. I'm sure you're just as brilliant as Areeb that I know. So welcome. Thank you so much all for joining. Thank you, Areeb. This was absolutely wonderful. I'm so glad that we were able to make this happen and bring this to this audience. And if there is obviously interest, we're more than happy to continue additional sessions. Feel free to reach out to both myself and Areeb on LinkedIn. We love to connect with our community and understand what do you want to hear next. We are planning our 2026 webinar series. So if there are very particular topics, more than happy to accommodate.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Ida. And I think that, financial literacy is such an important thing for all of us to be aware about. If anyone has any questions, follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to reach out on LinkedIn. If you'd like, I'm making this offer here. I can also sit with you one-on-one and also talk about your personal financial strategy or educate on different financial topics. Shahryar, I noticed that you posted the question we may have missed, advantages and disadvantages of investing through RSP. I think we might be at time. So why don't we take that offline, Shahryar, and I can sit with you and we can talk about that.
It's a very, very good question. Excellent question. I hope that you two get a chance to connect. Anyway, till the next time, I believe our next session is scheduled, 2 sessions we have scheduled in January. So I hope you all have a bit of downtime over the next few weeks and enjoy if you're taking any vacations, but we will see you in the new year. Areeb, thanks again. Much appreciated. Thank you all for joining. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.